Okay, let's keep moving. So, chapter 14. It's interesting now that we have this theme of being marked for Passover, right? You're marked with the blood of the Lamb here in Passover. These ones are also marked. And it's interesting that specifically the lovers of Jesus here are called virgins. Why? Because we have the theme of faithful, right? Faithful remnant degrading into harlotry. And so in this theme of faithful to harlotry, the lovers of Jesus are considered to be virgins. And they are safe even unto death, which is important because perseverance is a major pastoral theme, right, in Revelation. And so the marking isn't immunity, it's the fact that you can have peace even unto death, that you can be in his presence and in his joy, even if it costs this body. And that's part of the encouragement, is that we don't actually fear death because he's on the other side of it. And then also in Revelation 14, for the first time, we are introduced to the theme of the harlot, and it says, "Woe to Babylon." And then we have the harvesting. And this is the grace of the Lord helping people to get out of the Holy Land prior to all of this. Interestingly, several early church fathers, like Eusebius, who was actually the first church historian, he's about 300 years in, and he starts to look back, and he compiles over many years information, and he writes these histories. And so Eusebius actually explains that the believers in Judea and the Holy Land had angelic visitation warning them that the Romans were on their way, and told them this is now the fulfillment of what Jesus was saying and it's time to leave. And we have this mass exodus prior to the Roman invasion, and it says that they fled to the eastern regions of the Transjordan to an area called Pella, which is in the mountains. You have to go over the Dead Sea heading east, and that they were spared the destruction. So Revelation 14 can be tied in with Matthew 25 for your notes. Oh, hold on, 25. And again, we have this, something's happening, like the horses of war have been summoned. That's scary. Lovers of Jesus, take comfort. Beast of Rome is coming. That's scary. Lovers of Jesus, take comfort. Right? Same theme. This is a really critical one. Revelation 15. The song of Moses is sung. This makes no sense outside of the people of Israel. Here's why. I invite you to sit down and start at Deuteronomy 28 and read it till the end. If you do that, you will understand Revelation 15 entirely. Deuteronomy 13 all the way to the end. Sorry, Deuteronomy 28 all the way to the end. In Deuteronomy 22, we have the Song of Moses. But you have to go back to Deuteronomy 28 first. See, because what happens is God gives them the parameters of this contractual agreement the blessings and the curses. And the curses, if you read Deuteronomy 20:18, and then you read what happens in Revelation, it's almost verbatim. The curses that are listed in Deuteronomy 28 are mentioned throughout John's revelation in terms of the things that are going to be coming upon the Holy Land. But then God takes it a step further. He says, Moses, here's what's going to happen with your people. They're going to miss it. And then God unravels the whole story of Israel to Moses. It's in Deuteronomy. You can read it. They're going to go after other gods. They're going to break the covenant. They're going to break my heart. And then all these tragedies are going to come upon them. Therefore, and then this is Deuteronomy 32. Therefore, write this song, so that when all these calamities befall my people, and they ask themselves, why has this happened to us? They will sing this song and remember what I said in Deuteronomy 28. Why would Rome be given the Song of Moses? Doesn't make any sense. Nor does it make sense for America or Canada or anybody else to be given the Song of Moses. This was very specific. And so the Song of Moses is sung. It says it right there in Revelation 15. They sing the Song of Moses. Why? Because this whole thing, we're going to see it again. So why, oh Lord, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Right? And so here we had the martyrs crying out. Right? There was war in the land. And then the martyrs are saying, how long, O Lord, until the righteous blood is avenged? Which is a direct fulfillment of Matthew 23. Jesus saying that all of this guilt of this blood is going to fall in this generation. So we have the question, why? Here we have the question, why is this happening? The Song of Moses. Critical for understanding. And then also in Revelation 15, we have our second heavenly vision, which again has saints standing in, your Bible says on, but the literal word is actually in, a sea of crystal glass and fire. Isn't it interesting that God before his throne has a sea of crystal glass and fire, and the saints are actually in it? Because we're continually refined in his presence. Continually refined in his presence. So good. Then we get into Revelation 16. Revelation 16 is the cup of passion. That's the actual word. Some translations say wrath, but it's actually the cup of passion. The passion of God. I prefer that translation. This is directly synonymous with Zechariah 12 and also Jeremiah 25 and Jeremiah 51. So to understand the cup of passion which is poured out, you have to look at Zechariah 12, Jeremiah 25, and Jeremiah 51. And in many words, summarizing the prophets, John quickly given an allusion. It's saying that there's this cup of passion that is being poured out for the destruction of apostate Jerusalem. One other major theme, and we touched on this before, is that these beasts are being gathered at Har-Megiddo, which you can visit today in Israel, right? The mountainous region that had a valley that was a gateway into the southern region. So if you're coming from the north, like Rome is, you'd had to go through Har-Megiddo to get into Judea and to Jerusalem. And so Revelation 16 is that all these armies, and we read in Josephus that Vespasian was accompanied by neighboring countries as well who hated the Judeans. And so together they amassed an army of 60,000, which included 4 Roman legions. But they were given one mind, and that mind was war and battle at Har-Megiddo. And we know that that's exactly what happened. In fact, this whole area of Har-Megiddo and Jezreel, which is in the Galilee region where Jesus grew up, this is where he started first. And so Vespasian makes his rounds in the place where Jesus once walked. And it says that the blood shed was so tremendous that the Sea of Galilee became red and the River Jordan ran with corpses and blood. That is intense imagery. And so it's incredible that there's a prophetic warning given to John prior to those events that actually took place. Curiously, a new figure is introduced in Revelation 16. In addition to the beast, we have a lying prophet. Which sounds less intense because our Bibles, say false prophet, all caps, with a frowny face. But it's a lying prophet is introduced. And it's interesting because there's a spirit that comes from the mouth of the beast, right? And from the mouth of this lying prophet. And most translations just say it was, a frog came out. It was the spirit of a frog or something. But the word is actually renula. So rana is Greek for frog, but renula is actually a condition. It's a disease of the mouth that they used to call frog tongue. And the imagery is lying. So it's just saying that they're spewing lies out of their tongue. And so this renula, or this frog disease, is what's actually proceeding out of their mouth, which it'd be the equivalent today would be like a forked tongue, right? You say like that lying person had a forked tongue. You understand the connotation with snakes and lying, deception, and this was similar in antiquity with renula. The personification of this is that, again, the objective at the end of Revelation 16, it says that they're all saying and wanting the same thing. And so this is the key, because people are taking this and then tying it into a bunch of other theories to create this personification of some super bad guy that's going to come and take over the world, which I disagree with. In Revelation 16, it says that they're all given one mind and one objective, and that is to assemble at Har-Megiddo for war. It's right there in the book. So if they're given one objective, and they're lying, doing whatever they need to assemble for war at Har-Megiddo, it's interesting that that happened. The tragedy is that the Jews believed that God was going to give them victory against the armies that assembled at Har-Megiddo, against Vespasian and Titus and the Romans. They were under the lies, and it's interesting if you read Josephus, The War of the Jews, this first century account, he was there, he was an eyewitness. Several times he says that many people came and prophesied, many people even were led out into the wilderness, and these false messiahs performed signs and great deception so as to lead the people to follow them. And this happened time and time again, that these figures within Judea and the regions of Galilee would rise, and they would deceive people, but it was always unto warfare. Y'all good? Okay. I'm moving along because we're going to talk about some big themes. Because so far I've talked about what's happening or what's happened, but we're going to talk about things to come, which I'm excited about. So in 17, Jerusalem is now fully personified as the harlot, and it is flat out plagiarism. I mean, it's basically the whole of Ezekiel 16, Hosea 1, 2, and 3. All of this imagery between 17, 18, and 19 surrounding Jerusalem becoming this harlot, unfaithful to Yahweh, whom she was betrothed to. 16, yeah. And interestingly, in Revelation 17, verse 20, it says that this is where the blood of the martyrs was shed. And then also in 19, it says that this is the blood of all the prophets. So we know that Old Testament prophets didn't prophesy outside of the Holy Land. Here, the vision of Jerusalem sitting on Rome, that word is actually sensualized. And I'll let you read between the lines. So it's this grotesque picture of debauchery, and she says to herself, I have no husband. She says to herself, I am not a widow. And it's interesting because her bridegroom, right, was killed, Jesus. And so for her to say, I am not a widow, it's talking about even the passion of Jesus. So in 18, this is where the fall of Jerusalem happens. And you can reference Jeremiah 50 and 51. And again, it's full-on plagiarism. And I say that lightly. It's just heavy, heavy, heavy Old Testament references being made here. So if you read Jeremiah 50 and 51 and Isaiah 47, you're going to see fall of Babylon being written by those prophets describing this. And then the splendor of Jerusalem is described. So Ezekiel 16 is really important in understanding God's redemptive side because 17, 18, 19 talks about the fall. But like I said, all of God's judgments are restorative, not retributive. So this is not the end of the story. And I know that a lot of anti-Semitic teaching uses Revelations to say that God's done with the Jews and doesn't really care anymore, and it's all about the church and etc. and Christianity. But that's not God's heart. All of his judgments are restorative. So Ezekiel 16 is a major theme to understanding where there is hope for the people of Israel. So part of Ezekiel 16 in verse 15 says, but you trusted in your beauty and played the whore because of your renown and lavished your whorings on any passerby. Your beauty became his. Your renown went out forth among the nations because of your beauty, for it was perfect through the splendor that I had bestowed on you, declares the Lord. So there's this lament in Revelation 18 about the fall of Jerusalem, but also her beauty. And if you read, again, first century historians like Tacitus and Cassius Dio, they talk about Jerusalem and how it was a wonder in this beautiful place. So I'm just going to fast forward to Revelation 19. This is where we get confusing. Because here we have Jesus now as a rider on a white horse, a triumphant king. Right? He's revealed to himself as a high priest, as the lamb, and now as the king. So now he's riding out. And I remember one time I saw this 30, 40-year-old, Book of Revelation movie, and the quality was fantastic. Anyway, they have this guy on a white horse, supposed to be Jesus, and he's just like hacking down people with a sword. There's just blood everywhere. I'm like, man, that is a waste of film. Tragedy. The key to understanding Revelation 19 is that the sword is proceeding from his mouth. His word is what is being fulfilled. The fulfillment is causing all of these people to be slain by the Roman sword. You have to remember that you can't, how do I say this? Our God is not bipolar and he's not passive aggressive. So you don't have Jesus stooping down and picking up the widow or the woman caught in adultery. You don't have that same Jesus now hacking people with the sword. And when I said that Jesus is the perfect image of the Father, the New Testament 3 times tells us that he is the express image of the invisible God. He is the image of the Father. And Jesus himself says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. In other words, it's also not God hacking people with the sword, because it was also God who stooped down and picked up the woman caught in adultery. And this is so key to understanding that people have this idea of like all of God's anger, which is this passive aggressive thing, is going to be unleashed. And so all my coworkers who make fun of me because of a Christian, they're going to get it. And that is so not God's heart. We are in this narrative. This is but a snapshot. Now I'm going to talk to you about all the future stuff and great things to come. But right now, this is but a snapshot for a specific people who have been in dialogue with Yahweh long before any of us even knew he existed for 2,000 years. They have a history that you and I were not privy to, which is why Jesus' salvation is of the Jews. And Paul goes at great lengths talking about being grafted in as a Gentile. You are now being brought into something that's already been established. So now God is giving context to this people, helping them understand this. But when we talk about the wrath bits, it's talking about Old Testament prophecies and the prophecies of Jesus. Jesus warning them, guys, saying, guys, listen, I am here to fulfill what you could not. Now's the time to cross over the River Jordan. If you don't, this is what's going to happen. And so it's the word proceeding from the mouth of Jesus that is being fulfilled. It is not Jesus himself cutting anybody down. So the climax of Revelation 19 is that Jesus is revealed and he comes with these horsemen. And this is really cool. In the Gospels, Jesus whenever he talks about judgment, it's temporal. And he typically ends with, you will see me coming on the clouds. And it's always this event that's temporal. And so in Matthew 23, he says, All of these things, the righteous blood that was shed on the land of Israel, the guilt of that is coming on this generation, meaning everybody who's alive right now is going to be alive when it happens. And then he says, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So again, he's talking about this day of the Lord event, this riding on the clouds, right, which is Old Testament imagery. Interestingly, in Revelation 11, he's coming riding on the clouds, right? Josephus, who was a Jew and alive at this time, and two other first century Roman historians who were not Jews, all write of the same account, that when the armies were coming and advancing upon the Holy Land, and specifically in and around Jerusalem, that chariots of fire were seen in the skies surrounding the city. And Josephus, he's writing this, and he says, I know that this sounds crazy, but I'm telling you that this happened. All of us saw in the skies, encircling the city, these horses and chariots that were blazing with fire in the heavens. Two Roman historians also write of the same thing when they were chronicling the victories of Rome, which would include their great emperor Vespasian, that when they besieged the Judeans, that this was one of the phenomenons that happened. Also, Josephus writes that just before the destruction, that the priests were ministering in the temple, and a great light shone from the most holy place, and the light permeated out so that all in the temple court couldn't see, and they heard a great voice saying, let us depart, and that whole light and that experience immediately vanished. Josephus was a priest, so he was well acquainted with the temple area, and so it's interesting that we have these histories surrounding that event. So the fall of apostate Jerusalem. Let me read you Jeremiah 2 and 3. Go and cry in the hearing of Jerusalem, saying, thus says the Lord, remember you, the kindness of your youth, the love of your betrothal, when you went after me in the wilderness, a land not sown. Can a virgin forget her ornaments, or a bride her attire? Yet my people have forgotten me. Have you seen the backsliding Israel has done? She has gone up to every high mountain and under every green tree and played the harlot. Return to me, I said, but she did not return. And her treacherous sister Judah saw it. Then I saw that for all the curses for which backsliding Israel had committed, I gave her a certificate of divorce. In Galatians 4 and 5, Paul writes, Abraham had two sons, one of a bondwoman, the other of a free woman. These are the two covenants, one from Mount Sinai, which gives birth to bondage, which is Hagar, and the other is Jerusalem, free, and the mother of us all. Now, one of the things that happens is we are introduced at the end here to the sea. I know your Bible says lake, but the word is sea of fire and sulfur. And then also other times it says brimstone. We'll talk about that. All right. So this is the inner bit of Revelation. And here, the proclamation was made. It is now the kingdom age, right? You guys remember that, Revelation 11? So now in Revelation 20, we have a proclamation of this 1,000-year age or reign that begins. Metaphorically speaking, 1,000 representing a complete and perfect season or age or era. It is the span of time that is perfected, much like the 144,000, a perfect sum of 12,000 in 12 tribes. So if you were to take this literally, you also have to take the 144,000 literally, and there's already a religion out there, and I think they're out of numbers. So you missed the boat. Or we can understand that much like this is a perfect number, and the dimensions of the measurement of the New Jerusalem in 21, the dimensions don't make any sense in real life, but they are a perfect square within a square, and everything is perfect. So is this number perfect. And so in the same way that we have the introduction of the third epic season, and you guys will remember we started with chaos, then the age of Moses, and now the age of Messiah. The kickoff, right, is the end of the Mosaic age. And so here again, there's an end of this age, and now the introduction of the new age that you and I are all in today.